I mean, we've kind of talked about Kyle Hendricks a little bit, but I'm just interested in, if you're able to talk to him after the game. I know, like with the trade deadline looming, I don't know if they're going to trade him or not, but it could potentially tonight could have been his last start as a Cub at Wrigley Field, at least. Did anyone ask him any questions related to that?
Yeah, we did. Obviously that, and just the direction of the team in general going forward. I mean, he said he didn't necessarily think about like the fact that just the way the rotation lines up, all that, like this could be his potentially last start at Wrigley Field in a Cubs uniform before that. I mean, it is the way it lines up, right? Unless they shift things around, he gets to pitch here one more time. But the way things are lined up, the schedule, this is his last time pitching at Wrigley Field before the trade deadline. He said he didn't really think about that specifically, just where the Cubs are at. He's been a part of the last two sell-offs, the trade deadlines, and he's been around. He's 33 years old, 10 seasons in the big leagues. Like, he understands the business side of baseball. So what he said was he's just more like happy to be playing baseball and playing well, obviously, but playing baseball just from what he's gone through the last couple of years. The shoulders, capsular tear in his right shoulder, all that, having a long rehab, having to come back, and just not knowing for sure, where he would be at, right? I think we all said it. We had really no expectations for Kyle Hendricks coming back because we didn't know where he was going to be at. So for him, it's like he's happy to be playing baseball, playing well, playing with the guys in the clubhouse, being around the clubhouse guys, being a part of what they're trying to do right now. But he said it, he said he knows the business of baseball. He doesn't know, they have work to do, obviously. And then whatever happens is the front office's decision. None of the guys in the clubhouse can control it outside of doing what they do on the field. So that's just kind of his, that's obviously his, what he thinks about it. That's what pretty much everyone in the clubhouse says about it, is they're going to go out there, do what they could do, focus on winning, focus on being together and winning as a team. Just hoping that can obviously lead to good things come the trade deadline 11, 12 days from now.
Ryan, go ahead, Corey.
No, go for it, Kevin.
I was just one more thing on Kyle Hendricks. I'm kind of looking at his splits at Wrigley. 118 career starts at Wrigley Field. He's got almost 600 strikeouts compared to looks like 150 walks about. Of all of those numbers, and we can go through splits and whatnot, and we've all sat here and watched a lot of Kyle Hendricks at Wrigley Field. Can you think of any fun memories, and like what's your favorite memory of him just covering a game or anything like that? Anything that you guys have had sitting in the stands aside from, you could say postseason, but I'm just curious. I really feel like we got to give Kyle Hendricks kind of a tip of the hat from all the great starts he's had at Wrigley over these last few years.
Yeah, I mean, just the last couple of years have obviously been down for him, right? Just because of the injury, the struggles in 21. I mean, for me, you think about, when was it? I think it was a Cardinals game, right? The last time the Cardinals were here was when he made his debut this season. And again, we didn't know what to expect from Kyle, but it was just kind of like, it was just good to see Kyle Hendricks back, hopefully healthy and pitching for the Cubs. Like, that's after that whole year, that long rehab process, like that was just good to know and good to see. And whether he was as effective as he's been or not, just to see him come back, make that debut, pitch against the Cardinals, whatever it was, like after everything he'd been through the last couple of years, that's obviously just a good note for me, for specifically covering him. Not a whole lot of Kyle Hendricks because he missed all of the first half of last season. So just to see him, back again, healthy, pitching well, it's always good to see.
I think, there's a few things I would say about Kyle Hendricks, and obviously we'll see how this plays out. We may not need to be doing a
right, yeah,
memorandum on him, but I do think, given the occasion and how things have happened in the last few years, it's always good to do it, beforehand. One thing that comes to mind if you're talking outside of the postseason, I remember when he started the 2020 season with a complete game shutout. 9 strikeouts, and just that was such a unique situation, obviously, and a scary situation at times for so many people. And we're all, sitting at home. Like, for him to start that season that way was just a really special moment, even given the circumstances, that, kind of stands out. Obviously, what he needs to be remembered for is that he's pitched two of the biggest games in Chicago Cubs history. One, he started as potentially the biggest game in baseball history, not just Cubs history. The pennant-winning game against the Dodgers in Game 6 of 2016, and while it wasn't at Wrigley Field, Game 7, of course, against Cleveland to win the World Series. But for me, the thing that stands out most about Kyle Hendricks is that, and he did it tonight, right? He goes about this and has achieved such success in a way that very few people, I mean, really, I don't want to say the history of baseball, because I don't know what was going on, for the 200 years this sport's been around. But it's just such a unique way of going about things. And for a guy to sit in the high 80s with his fastball and work so much on getting weak contact, to have a year where he nearly could have won the Cy Young, if a couple of pitchers, one of whom was John Lester on his own team, weren't better than him in that year. And just continue doing that in a manner that we just don't see. The game has obviously evolved to velo and huge spin and so many different things that Kyle Hendricks just doesn't necessarily do. And so to watch him have the career that he did, and go about things the way that he does, has just been really special. It's just so unique and not really something that I think we'll see too much going forward, because the game just trends away from it, right? Guys like him don't even get a chance in a lot of situations. And for somebody like him to have the success that he did for the Chicago Cubs, after coming over here in a trade, is really quite something.
Yeah, and hopefully a lot more years like that too. That's really the hope. But you're right. If this was, the only reason I brought it up is just in case, because I really do think that most of us hanging out in the chat here at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday night talking Cubs baseball realize the impact that he's had on this franchise. But he truly will go down as an all-time great Cub. And if this was his last start at Wrigley Field, it's memorable and it was great.
Yeah, I mean, for me, other than the postseason success, I mean, the start that always sticks out to me is the Maddox he threw in 2019 against the Cardinals, for obvious reasons, because it was against the Cardinals, but also the fact that it was 81 pitches, I think it was, in that start. So that I just remember watching it that day, and it's just like when he's on, and it's special to watch. He's not going to go to the Hall of Fame. He was your poor man's Greg Maddux is the best way that you could explain Kyle Hendricks. And he was never a top prospect. The fact you got him for Brian Dempster and, like Corey said, pitched in two of the biggest games in Cubs history. That's how his career turned out to be with the Cubs. Was it's everything you could have asked for.